Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a pretty incredible intersection of elite sporting achievement, advanced statistical theory, and grassroots humanitarianism. If you think cricket is just a game of bat and ball, well, prepare to have your perspective completely transformed.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the legend of Sangakkara, the science of batting, tackling the nervous 90s myth, seeing how sports drives social impact, and wrapping up with a foundation of goodness. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the legend of Sangakkara.
If you follow international cricket, you already know Kumar Sangakkara is synonymous with absolute mastery at the crease. Think back to that unforgettable energy during the 2014 T20 World Cup, when his brilliant 52 not-out guided Sri Lanka to their maiden title against India. It was a massive game, and a massive player stepped up. But to truly grasp his greatness, we have to look past the individual highlights and dig into the data.
Just think about this staggering number for a second, 60.64. That was his test batting average across 84 matches. To put that into perspective, it is literally the highest among all batsmen with over 5,000 runs who debuted after 1970. It's mathematical proof of a guy who dominated constantly and failed, well, rarely.
When you break down his career across all formats, the total dominance is just undeniable. We are talking about over 26,000 international runs in total. His consistency was unreal. I mean, he hit 4 consecutive World Cup centuries in 2015. But seeing numbers this huge really begs a fascinating question.
Which brings us to Section 2, the science of batting. Seriously, how do elite batsmen actually survive out there long enough to score that much? How do they avoid a single mistake for hours on end? Well, a really fascinating master's thesis by Oliver Stevenson from the University of Auckland actually tackled this using Bayesian inference. Instead of just relying on a standard batting average, this research figures out the exact probability of a player getting out at any specific moment during their innings.
The key here is something called the hazard function. Basically, a batsman's probability of being dismissed isn't a flat line. It fluctuates. They have to adapt to the pitch, the weather, the intense pressure. I mean, it makes sense, right? Batting is way harder when you first walk out to the crease, before you've settled in. This mathematically maps out the classic cricket concept of getting your eye in. The model uses an exponential varying hazard setup to compare two things. First, your initial ability, which is when a player first walks out and is super vulnerable. And second, the equilibrium ability, which is their absolute peak performance state once they're dialed in. The model actually tracks the exact timescale of the transition between those two states. And when you look at how these hazard function curves play out, you can see a player's ability evolve with literally every single run scored. It mathematically proves that a player is far more susceptible early on. It takes real time to physically and mentally adjust to the conditions. But once that curve flattens out, the batsman is totally locked in.
Now let's look at Section 3, the nervous 90s myth.
This statistical model is a real game changer because we can use it to test one of cricket's biggest and oldest superstitions. Do the nervous 90s actually exist? Commentators absolutely love blaming a dismissal in the 90s on pure nerves as a player approaches a century. It's a great narrative, but is it backed by data?
Well, we know psychological studies show that mood impacts performance. And sure, approaching a milestone like 100 runs might cause a tiny lapse in concentration. Opposition captains even set super aggressive fields right then to exploit those perceived nerves. But the Bayesian analysis is pretty clear. While abilities do vary at specific scores, the hard math simply does not support a widespread nervous 90s effect ruining batting ability. The math just completely busts the myth.
Moving on to Section 4, sports, driving, social impact.
Let's zoom out to the real world for a second, because the exact same discipline and statistical rigor we see on the pitch translates to a much bigger story off it. Legends like Sangakkara and Mahela Jayawardene leverage their huge platforms as trustees for the Foundation of Goodness. This is an incredible rural development charity, and their involvement is super hands-on. Just looking at 2019, they celebrated their 20th anniversary, conducted their 100th consecutive reconciliation visit to the North, and hosted innovation workshops for kids.
And their data-driven impact is just staggering. In a single year, they distributed over 4,100 school packs, saw hundreds of graduates come through their Center of Excellence, and awarded crucial scholarships. They're using their influence and investments to bridge the urban-rural divide and empower hundreds of thousands of people across Sri Lanka.
Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, a foundation of goodness.
The real power of this organization is how they turn a shared love of cricket into vital, life-saving humanitarian action. They use a three-step approach. First, exchange programs that bring divided communities from the north and south together to build friendships. Second, nurturing young talent at the Sinagama Sports Academy with world-class facilities. And third, delivering rapid crisis